Well, it's the fourth quarter of the season, and we know how important that is, that you need to be playing your best football in December and going into January. So this is a big stretch for us, and we're playing some really good football teams.
All right, it is go time for the Steelers, as Ben Roethlisberger said today, the final quarter of the regular season. And first up for them is traveling to the West Coast to face the 2-10 Oakland Raiders. Before we talk about them, let's take a look at today's practice report. And joining me to break it down with so much more is my good friend Craig Wolfley. So a lot of names here. Let's go through the list very quickly. Of course, James Conner, we know he has been ruled out against the Raiders on Sunday, not practicing. Along with him, Anthony Chickillo and Marcus Gilbert, Marquise Pouncey, Antonio Brown, and Joe Haden getting the day off, a Vets Day per Coach Tomlin. Full participants today: Cam Canada, Rosie Nix, Ryan Switzer, and Morgan Burnett. So good news in terms of the guys who were full participants. And then Wolf, not listed on here today, even though it is Ben's day. No Ben Roethlisberger. Normally he takes Wednesdays off. He was out there today on the practice field.
And it sounds like you better get some NyQuil or something, going on there. He sounds a little congested. So for this last quarter of the season, you want to make sure you're getting your rest there, buddy. And I know that's one of the ways to do it. I see the Drew Brees commercials all the time, right?
All right, so what concerns you about the practice report as it stands today?
I'm concerned about Marcus Gilbert. I would like to see Marcus Gilbert be able to come back, as everybody would. It's not that Matt Filer and Chooks have not done a great job in holding down that right tackle position, but let's face it, you want to put the band back together. You want the guys that you started the season with to be finishing the season together. And he's missed 6 games, and 6 games is an awful lot of games to miss and then come back and try to be at the level everybody else is. So that's going to be problematic, and you would think and hope that you can get him back fairly soon, because he is an excellent player.
All right, yesterday during Coach's press conference, he mentioned the absence of Morgan Burnett on Sunday in terms of the Steelers' defense. So I'm going to point out him as some good news that number 42 is back at practice. He's dealing with a back injury, so hopefully he won't be inactive this week. Of course, Marcus Allen got his first helmet. There was a lot of different things happening on defense, but he was not out there, as well as Cam Sutton.
Well, you really would like to have Morgan out here. He's one of the reasons that they went out after the issues of missed tackles and communication, and thinking, well, a little bit to maybe help Ryan, replace Ryan and get that hybrid linebacker back there, and it's not worked out this year. He's been in and out, and you want to see more from Morgan. You would love to have Morgan back on point, because this is a guy that I think, going forward, he can make a big difference in that secondary and the sub-package football that was missing out in San Diego, because without Morgan Burnett and without Cam Sutton, you're left with a couple of, as Mike Tomlin I think put it, I had a little bit of smoke and mirror and I ran out of smoke. So
yeah.
That's about it.
That's exactly right. All right, the running backs. That's what everybody wants to know about from practice today, with no James Conner on Sunday. Who will start? Who will get some reps? Coach Tomlin alluded on Tuesday during his press conference that it was going to be a running back by committee, and nothing super, definitive yet in terms of what is going to happen. But Jaylen Samuels and Stevan Ridley both said they took first-team reps today, kind of splitting them. Samuels did kind of maybe tip his hand a little bit, saying that he does expect to start. But in terms of those two guys, very different, Wolf, but it could be what we will be seeing in Oakland.
No question about it. For this young man, Jaylen Samuels, the moment has arrived, and sometimes it's a moment that takes your breath away, because you're thinking, well, this is it. This is wow. And you've got to be able to be bigger than the moment that's coming before you. And for him, this is a great opportunity to keep that arrow pointing upward. He's been doing a great job. We haven't seen a lot of Stevan Ridley, because Jaylen Samuels has been on the ascension as far as getting some practice reps behind James Conner. One of the things that you love to see is what he did to step in the big game and come up 2 plays after James Conner was hurt, take that ball into the end zone. The beauty of it was, it didn't look like he was running all that fast, but nobody gained on him. And he scored the touchdown. His guys were trying to catch him. And he is a little bit faster than you might give him credit for. He's a thick, strong guy. And one of the things I really liked about him was back in early in September, when we had a a dinner with the rookies, a lot of his veterans and so forth, and getting a chance to talk to him and listening to him talk about his practice habits and how he goes about his business, preparing week in and week out, I thought it was very mature. I thought, you know what, this young man, though he's not been a featured back, this is an opportunity for him to move forward now and show what he's been doing since training camp in September and all those times. And you got to like the opportunity. Stevan Ridley, consistent guy, 6 years away from a 1,200-yard season, but he is the veteran. But you got to like the moment that Jaylen Samuels is being presented with.
All right, the Steelers were just in Denver, and on Saturday they'll be heading back to the West Coast to go to Oakland. Today, during Ben's Day, Ben Roethlisberger was asked about why it's difficult to travel to the West Coast.
I've heard people say that if it's under 24 hours, it really doesn't affect your body, you know. We've always gone at the same time as long as I've been here. This year we're going earlier in the day, and so I guess we're going to try something different.
All right, well, what is the hardest part as Ben was talking to there, just in terms of getting ready to play a football game?
Well, I heard that whole speech about less than 24 hours in Denver with the at altitude, and I know Chuck lied when he gave me that speech because I couldn't breathe when I was out there. Now, the same thing might be happening. You're going out to Oakland and you're gaining time, and it does throw your internal clock off a little bit. Certainly, you'd like to think it's going to be something you can shake out and get done with. I think one of the ideas that they want to do is go out earlier, do the walkthrough out there, and be able to move around. That's what we used to do. We used to go out and have it a little bit earlier. So I think it doesn't hurt. You think the last 3 times they've been out to the black hole, they've lost to 4-12 Raiders teams and 1-2-14. And frankly, I think it has to do when they imploded the Kingdome. All the bad mojo went from the Kingdome down to the black hole because I used to have bad times in the Kingdome there. Now it seems to have moved to the black hole.
And the Oakland Raiders, the only team in the AFC that Ben Roethlisberger has not won as the visiting quarterback. The last Steelers quarterback to beat the Raiders was Neil O'Donnell. So hopefully the Steelers can change that this week. Thanks, Wolf, for joining me today. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, Mike Prisuta with his perspective for Raiders Week.
You concerned about the running game?
No. You know, we still got our linemen, and we've got some guys that are willing to step up and fill the void.
All right, Ben Roethlisberger says he is not concerned about the Steelers' running game heading into Oakland against the Raiders. Mike Prisuta, give us your perspective. Are you concerned?
I am not, and let me tell you why. It was, last Sunday watching James Conner go down, both the way he went down and when he went down was less than encouraging. Fortunately, the Steelers had their feathers numbered for just such an emergency. And no, they're not going to give the ball to Foghorn Leghorn, but minus Conner in Oakland this Sunday, the Steelers will turn to veteran Stevan Ridley and rookie Jaylen Samuels. That should be more than enough in reserve in the short term. Ridley has been there, done that back. He has 18 carries for 56 yards this season, not because the Steelers were afraid to give him the ball, but because they haven't really needed to until now. He's rushed for over 1,200 yards in a season and over 150 yards in a playoff game. And while he hasn't done either one of those things since 2012, Ridley's second year in the NFL, he remains a capable alternative to Conner. That's why the Steelers were thoughtful, Mike Tomlin maintained this week, regarding Ridley's initial inclusion in the group. That's why he's been here all along. We're about to find out if he's stretched, loose, and ready to produce, as Ridley vowed he would be out of the bullpen back in September. Samuels was all 3 of those things in the immediate aftermath of Conner's ankle sprain in the fourth quarter. Last Sunday against the Chargers, the rookie from NC State produced a tying touchdown late, the most recent example of what he might contribute in the passing game if he's called upon more often. Samuels earned a passing grade from Ben Roethlisberger for contributions made early and late against the Chargers. He got to the spots where he needed to be, and he made the plays with the ball in his hand, Roethlisberger assessed. Samuels needs no other endorsement. And perhaps the biggest reason not to panic in Conner's absence is the offensive line remains intact. What the Steelers have up front should be more than enough against the NFL's number 31 rush defense and number 31 scoring defense, even if it's running back by committee. Are you ready for some football? The Steelers have their concerns heading into Oakland, but the running back position is well down on that list. They'll still welcome back Conner as soon as possible, but in Conner's absence, they have options that likewise were born to run.
All right, and don't you think, too, that just the way that we saw Ben and Antonio Brown, maybe the Wi-Fi, whatever we want to call it, against the Chargers last week, it's something they can carry on, if needed, into this game as well?
Absolutely. The Raiders have been giving up a lot of yards through the air and a lot of yards on the ground. The Chiefs had 4 passing touchdowns last Sunday. The Raiders have 10 sacks in 12 games, so that would apparently be an avenue that's open. But you do want to run the ball some. And I think the Steelers have a couple of guys who can do it. Samuels, as you were talking with Wolf, Missi, it's been slow but steady progress, and the arrow appears to be pointing upward. Most recently, you think back to him getting on the field for the first series against Denver, and then he got 17 snaps against the Chargers. Only 2 of those were after Connor was injured, so they were using him more because they wanted to, not because they had to. And Stevan Ridley, he was talking again today after practice that he still thinks he's the same guy that's had success in this league. He's got a veteran's perspective. He's been waiting for an opportunity, and that opportunity may well be at hand.
All right, Mike, something that we will continue to monitor all week. We are going to take another short break. When we return, Labs joins us for this week's edition of Agree to Disagree. We'll be right back. All right, we are back with this week's edition of Agree to Disagree, the show with the motto.
I'm
right.
He's
wrong. And that bell's got to go. Jingle bells, yes.
All right.
Silver bells, yes.
Well,
that one.
Maybe if there was less chit-chat, I wouldn't have to use it as much. Statement number 1. The officials decided the outcome last Sunday night. Labs, you can go first.
Agree. I mean, it's obvious, yes. You look at the false start that was not called, led directly to points. The block on the back that was not called, led directly to points. I get that, the football etiquette is that players and coaches say, officials' calls don't determine the outcome of the game. But I'm here to tell you that they do. You look at the last 3 plays of the game, those 3 field goal attempts, the guy spinning the ball. That's an illegal snap. It has been called. Joe Hayden was not offside on the first of those 3 that the guy missed. These are plays where they made bad calls that led directly to points, and you're talking about a game that ended in a field goal on an untimed down that never should have happened. If we continue to ignore these things, don't call them out, these mistakes, we are in fact enabling them. And so for that reason, the officials' calls determine the outcome of the game, yes.
All right, Prisuta, what do you think?
Wow. You want some cheese with that wine? Disagree. I'll agree with you that the officiating was horrendous, and I agree that it should be called out, pointed out, discussed, but officials never decide the game. You can overcome all that stuff, and I'll give you 2 plays that would have changed the outcome that had nothing to do with the officials. One was Justin Hunter running. He didn't beat the coverage on the way to the end zone. There was no coverage. Ben Roethlisberger overthrew him. That should have been a touchdown. Another, a Phillip Rivers pass into the end zone. Joe Hayden undercuts it, picks the ball off momentarily. Then he gets blasted by friendly fire. Sean Davis, no interception. If Hayden picks that ball off, the Chargers are down 16 the next time they get the ball, and it's in the 4th quarter. They're down at least 16. That was a game in which the Steelers had to overcome more than they should have had to overcome, but they were capable of doing it. They just didn't get it done.
So did the umpire blast the referee, and that's why he didn't throw the flag on a false start?
Statement number 2. Labs, you're going to lose if you don't stop. Statement number 2.
I lose, I'm right.
This is the game where I run more than pass. Prisuta, you can go first.
Okay, first let me preface my answer to this by channeling my inner Kevin Bacon and telling everyone to remain calm. All is well.
I thought you were going to say, thank you, sir, may I have another?
Maybe next week. In terms of whether they should run or throw, I don't care. Get the ball in the end zone. I'm kind of like Mike Tomlin with Xavier Grimble in Denver. It doesn't matter how you do it. Just get it done. The Raiders are porous on run defense. They're not real good at pass defense either. I'll give you last week, the future of rock and roll, Bruce Springsteen, a.k.a. Patrick Mahomes, threw for 295 yards and count them, 4 touchdowns against the Raiders. I hope the Steelers end up running the ball a lot, because that to me would mean that they are comfortably ahead in the second half and they're just pounding away and grinding down the clock. But I am not hung up on run pass distribution. I just want to see yards and points.
So are you agreeing or disagreeing?
Thank you.
I'm disagreeing. It's pretty
You
clear.
did not specify. All right, Labs, you're up.
Because I was going to say,
Labs,
I agree with
you're
this.
up.
I'll ring your bell
Your
and pay
time
attention.
is going. Let's
I
go,
know.
Labs.
I agree with the statement, and now that you clarified it, I disagree with Mike Prisuta, because if you look at this game, to me, about the only way the Steelers can lose, as long as Bill Vinovich and his crew aren't there, is turnovers. And you turn the ball over more often, and it's more likely that you turn the ball over when your offense is throwing the ball more than it's running it. Let me just point this out. Ben Roethlisberger leads the NFL in attempts and yards, but the only guy in the whole league that has more interceptions than him is Sam Darnold. So I understand that James Conner is out of the game, but this is a game where I'm turning to my offensive line and saying, okay, start kicking butt and taking names right from the beginning, open holes for whoever it is. We're going to pound the ball. I'm not saying you never throw it, and I'm not saying you run it exclusively at the beginning of the game, but at the end, you have more rushing attempts than passing attempts, and you leave the hole, the black hole, wherever it's called, with a W.
All right. I can't believe
Pass
I'm
the
going to
score,
say
run the
this.
win.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I am 2 for 2 with Pursuta this week, so he is the winner. That is going to do it for this edition of
can ring
Agree
the bell
to
some more.
Disagree.
Good choice.
And
Good
this
call.
is the end of Steelers Live,
After
thankfully
further
for me.
review,
All right.
Both of you don't know what
Thanks
you're
so
talking
much
about.
for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Bill Vinovich has a job for both of you on his crew.